Hello, I would just like to show this homemade knife that I made recently, and I would just like to explain how I made it for anyone else who may be interested in making a knife but they don't know how to. Um, the way I did it was actually very simple, and this knife does work, it will cut. Um, it still needs sharpened a bit better, but it is cutting wood. It was a pretty simple way of doing it. Not really. It doesn't really require any specialized tools or anything like that. Just some very common tools that you probably have if you like to build things, or you've probably already got these sort of tools, so it's nothing too specialized. So to start, I'll just move my background out of the way here. So this is literally nothing more than a piece of ash wood as a handle and a Poundland saw blade as the knife blade. Now there's obviously no teeth on them because I ground it off using a Dremel. I just used a saw blade like this. This isn't the one I used. This is actually a Mora. These cost 20 quid. I just used a pound saw blade. What I did was I put the saw blade in the vise and I ground off the teeth of the saw, and I cut the blade a certain length, and I just shaped the blade using the same Dremel. Just the cut off wheel I think I used on the Dremel. I could be wrong. I think you could do the exact same thing with an angle grinder, but I mean an angle grinder might be a bit too big and aggressive for this. So a Dremel, it doesn't have to be a Dremel, any rotary tool. Now this is just the blade slotted in to this piece of ash and glued in. There's no nails or screws or bolts or anything, it's just glue. It's just super glue. This is not intended for hard use. How I did that, well, I cut the piece of wood to size using a bandsaw, and I cut this slot in here also using my bandsaw. Now if you don't have a bandsaw, don't worry about that, you could still make this knife. It doesn't really matter what kind of saw you would use. You could use a tenon saw, a panel saw, a dovetail saw, a Japanese saw. It really doesn't matter what kind of saw you use. The only kind of saw I really wouldn't use would be a table saw, or any kind of circular saw actually, because this is just too small to hold into place. And it's rather dangerous holding a piece of wood up like this on a saw. So, probably a panel saw or something like that, if you don't have a bandsaw. You probably could use a jigsaw as well, that should be fine, or a scroll saw, although a scroll saw might be a bit too fine. What I did then was I glued this blade into the handle and I let it dry, I let it harden overnight, about 24 hours. I can't even remember what glue I used, I think it was Loctite, it really doesn't matter. I would imagine any kind of super glue would work. Once it was dried, I took this blade, I took the knife to a bench grinder and I just ground a blade edge onto it. Now that's not necessary, you don't have to do that, but it is helpful. Bench grinders are pretty cheap machines, and honestly I just clamp it to the bunk. I don't need to clamp it, I just sit it on the counter here. If you don't have a bench grinder, you can pick a bench grinder up as cheap as 25 quid and you could use it to regrind, almost any knife or axe or chisel or anything. So if you do a lot of woodwork, you've probably already got that. But I just did a few passes on the bench grinder to get a bit of an edge. Now this isn't perfect, I'm not really that experienced using a bench grinder. I only just bought one myself a few weeks ago and I've only used it a handful of times. I don't have any sort of training on grinders, so I'm new to this as well. So I just ground a blade onto it with the bench grinder. Now what I should have done first was I should have shaped the handle first. That was kind of a dumb thing to do, because if I'm got this clamped in a vise or on a bench and I'm I used rasps and files to shape this. If you're pushing tools along this, you've obviously got the risk of cutting yourself there, and if you've got a lot of force on the tool and you slip, you're going to give yourself a very bad cut. So that's just a heads up. That was where I messed up. I should have thought a bit better about what I was doing. Once the handle's shaped and you've got the blade ground, all you need to do really after that is give it a sand, give it whatever finish you want. I gave it a little bit cooking oil, that was it. Cooking oil will do just fine. And then I took it to a whetstone. I still need to finish sharpen. I think this actually might need to be ground because I didn't do a great job, but this knife does cut. I'll just show you here, I've got a piece of mahogany. So it does actually cut. It's not just, a showpiece. In fact, to be honest, the thing's not very pretty at all. Now, if you have a lot of experience sharpening knives, that will help a lot. I mean, I've been doing knife sharpening for quite a while now, just constantly practicing to get better at it. I also demonstrate on a piece of oak. Oak is much harder than mahogany. So it doesn't do a terribly great job on the oak, but that's because it's not really that sharp. But this just goes to show you can make a knife with very, very basic equipment. Now, as for tempering and heating and all the rest, I didn't do any of that. I didn't quench it, I didn't heat it up, I didn't forge it, I didn't put it in an oven, nothing like that. I just used the blade, ground it and stuck it on basically. That's probably not the best way to do it, but I don't know what I'm doing. But even though I don't know what I'm doing, I still got a product at the end of it, so it just goes to show you could just use very basic materials. I mean, it was a saw that only cost £1, and well, I've now got another knife from it, which is much more useful to me than a shitty saw. I've got a decent saw now anyway. This was intended to be a sort of a carving knife, a marking knife, just sort of general purpose woodworking knife. Unfortunately, it's not quite sharp enough for that yet. It's definitely not a bushcraft knife, and it's definitely not a survival knife. You're not going to be beating on a knife like this. I mean, there's no pins or anything, and this is probably not the best piece of wood. Now, ash probably is a good choice. I mean, come to think of it, I've never really seen a knife made from ash. Maybe walnut would be a good choice. No, maybe not. I'm not sure. But beech might also be, basically any hardwood would probably do. So ash, oak, mahogany, hickory, those would probably be good choices for something like this, especially since there's no liners or anything and it's not a full tang knife. But again, it's not meant to be, it's not really a beater, it's not really going to take a lot of force. I should say, if you don't have a bench grinder, there are many other ways you could put an edge on this. You could use an angle grinder, but again, this might be a bit too small, and an angle grinder might be a bit too aggressive for something like this. You could, of course, use a Dremel, or any rotary tool. It doesn't have to be a Dremel, doesn't matter what it is, or any sort of multi-tool. You could probably do it on a belt sander, or if you don't have any power tools, just simply a file. A file will do the same job. It'll take you a lot longer, but you can do it with a file. And you could probably even do it purely with sandpaper if you really wanted to, but you'd be there for a very long time. Or you could just skip all of that and just go straight to a whetstone, but you need a very, very, very abrasive whetstone, probably about 120 grit. And even then, you'd be there for hours and hours and hours and hours. But if that's all you have, it'll do the job. As much as I would like to make a video making this sort of knife, for me it took quite a long time. I don't have any video editing software to slice the videos up into parts when the glue has to dry, and I don't really have an appropriate camera to use. Unfortunately, if I did, if I was able to, I'd like to make a video demonstrating, but that won't be possible, unfortunately. So hopefully I'll make some more knives in the future. This is only the second knife I've ever made in my entire life. The first one was probably about 5 years ago, and that's long gone, unfortunately. I think that was a set of garden shears for pruning a hedge. But that's it. Thanks for watching, and this is my homemade knife.